Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to What's New in version 18.1 for VCL, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall. In this session, see the new entity mapping framework, Google and Office Calendar integration into the scheduler control, the new hi-DPI SVG skin, and more. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Julian.
And thank you, Amanda, and welcome everybody to What's New in version 18.1 for VCL, the Visual Control Library. I remember it well. And what we're going to be doing today is showing you a few demos, talking about the new features. And so without further ado, I think let's start off with a quick set of frequently asked questions. The first one is, when is it available? And I'm assured by the team that we're talking about a day or two that we'll actually release the full release rather than the beta. At the moment, I'm using the beta, so the demos you'll see are maybe a couple of weeks younger, if you like, than the beta that we've been providing for download. Now, where do I get it? How do I download it? And which versions of RAD Studio, etc., are supported? These I'll quickly answer straight away. The first one is, where do I get it? Go to our website, and if you haven't been there, say over the last couple of weeks, you'll notice that we've changed it. We've improved the website so it looks better on mobile devices as well as our normal desktops. And so, as you notice in the top right-hand corner up here, there's a login link. There's a My Downloads link, and it's easier to actually press the My Downloads link because the very first thing that happens is it asks you for a login. So type in your email and your password if you're an active customer, and you get taken straight away to the Download Manager page. There's an initial bit of blurb, if you like, and underneath that, you get the actual product list. This is my product list. Don't get jealous. I happen to work here, therefore I get everything. But I've dropped down the VCL subscription item in the product list, and as you see, there's a version here for 18.1.1 for the beta, which we released maybe a couple of weeks ago. The things I want to show you here is, first of all, click on either the exe to get the installer or the zip file if you prefer to do it manually. I'm old-fashioned. I'll click on the exe and download the actual installer itself. A couple of other buttons here that you should take note of. The first one is this button, the version 18.1 major changes button, where we talk about what's new in the product. And then there's a button for the change logs. In other words, what has been fixed in this particular version, the kind of breaking changes that we have, and so on and so forth. If I click on the major changes button, you get taken to our what's new page for the entirety of our product line. .NET and our web products were all released a couple of weeks ago. So here we're just showing the VCL what's new. And as it says up here, it's still the beta. We're still showing the beta. That'll be updated in a day or two. And the other side of things is the fixes, the resolved issues, any breaking changes and such like. You're taken to the support center. And as we see here, there's an option just to show the changes and the issues in a particular version. You can also click on this item here and select another version to show all the changes which happened between those two versions. So what kind of things will you run into as you update your particular install? So that's where to find it, how to download it, where to find more information, and let's go into which versions of RAD Studio are supported. Now, strictly speaking, DevExpress VCL 18.1 is for RAD Studio 2010 or later only. However, the rich edit needs XE+, and if you use a 64-bit C++ builder, then you need XE8 or above. I keep on warning attendees in these webinars as we go through that this breadth of support is likely to change. So if you are not upgrading your Delphi or your C++ builder or your RAD Studio, I would really recommend you do. Get onto Tokyo. To be honest, Embarcadero are updating the most recent version fairly often. It's like 2 or 3 times a year they're providing an update. And the moment it's up to 10.2.3 Tokyo. I would really recommend you update. Yeah, you know, at some point our VCL subscription will only be, I don't know, say XE6 and above or something like that. Just be aware. And I believe if I remember rightly, Embarcadero have changed their subscription model as well just recently. So yeah, go and have a chat with them. Next, let's have a quick overview before I jump in with the various demos. Now, we've been working on a new tool for our VCL customers, and it's called the Entity or the Express Entity Mapping Framework, EMF. This is, as it says here, an object relational mapping tool, ORM, for your apps. So basically allows you to easily map your relational schema and your database to a class model in your application. I'll show you what all this is about in a moment. Ribbon control gains a new search bar. Toolbar allows the user to rapidly find a command in the ribbon. And next is, I have to say, I've said it before, one of my pet enthusiasms. We have a new skin. Our Bezier Skin has been implemented for VCL. What, I hear you say? It's a skin that renders through the use of scalable vector graphics, SVG. It looks good. It looks really good on hi-DPI screens, such as the one I'm looking at. And it's time to chuck all those raster-based icons and skins and look at something that's good on any resolution on any monitor. And remember, this is VCL. This is old style, came in what, 1993 or whatever it was. No, it wasn't 93, it's 94, 95. Can't remember now, 95. Next up, PDF viewer, support for bookmarks and hyperlinks, as well as navigation through your document by clicking on page thumbnails. And now for a fun one, this is going to be a fun one to demo today, is our scheduler control gains a storage component that maps to either your Microsoft Office calendar, that's Outlook, or your Google Calendar. You can create, display, modify, delete appointments on those calendars through this storage component attached to our scheduler control. Next, the tree list gains node filtering and the grid's find panel, and the latter has also been ported to the vertical grid. I'll show you what that means in a minute. We've also improved the touch-friendly scroll bar we added in version 17.2 by merging it, and I'm using air quotes here for the merging, with the classic scroll bar to give a look and feel that's more in line with what you find in UWP applications on Windows 10. Several improvements have been made to the grid control, including a much improved performance for the data export, and that improved code is also found in the tree list. Now, next slide, he says. I know many of you are going to ask about Firemonkey. Now, back at the end of last year, we did a quick survey for our VCL customers about what they wanted to see in a future version. And one of the big items that came up was, of course, Firemonkey controls. Now, it goes without saying that this is a big proposition. We are very used to VCL. We know what VCL can do. We know how to access, the operating system directly. And I've been saying this for years on these What's New webinars, and this webinar is no exception. It's a big thing. Nevertheless, we are doing some work on such a feature set. Now, although I've only put up desktop grid here because we've already basically said we're doing work on a desktop grid, we're actually doing 3 controls. There's a layout control, there's an in-memory data set, which will help with the grid, and the grid itself. And we're doing it basically not only for the desktop, but we're also experimenting with regard to mobile as well. So all I'm going to say at this particular point in time, they're not ready for any CTP or beta or invited preview or whatever you like to call it with 18.1. Not ready yet. Even I haven't seen them. We're still some time away from being able to do something like that. Maybe the next major release, 18.2, I'll have some bigger news, but just stay tuned in case a preview is made available before then. You may get an email. Now, all that said, let's do some in-action type demos. The first one I want to show you is our entity model, entity mapping framework. It's an object relational mapping, so RM tool, that helps you code up data access and management by converting your database schema into classes and properties and collections for use in code. And using this tool, you can basically query data and implement your business logic using entity models and an object-oriented approach instead of, how can I put it, getting into the nitty-gritty of writing and executing SQL statements. And believe me, sometimes that can be fun, but sometimes, yeah, not so much. So here we have our new entity model designer. So I have a blank data model. So first of all, I need to actually point this data model to an actual database. And what I need to do there is I shall create a connection. Now, the kind of databases we support straight off with this EMF are SQLite. There's Microsoft SQL Server, to which I go, duh. MySQL, Firebird, Oracle, and Access if you're still back in those days. So SQLite, I have one. It's from our photo viewer demo, essentially. We have a little database down here, photo viewer database. It basically describes photos and collections of photos and other that kind of thing. I can test the connection if I want to. Yep, we opened that database and I can now press OK. What happens now is the database browser window here on the right shows me essentially the structure of that database that I just pointed to. And it shows me the tables. I've got albums and so on and so forth, and down here some effects, some photos and so on and so forth. There's keys, there's fields. Brilliant. Now I'm going to generate a diagram of that schema. And to do that, I'm going to create our data model. In a sense, it's an internal representation of that database schema, but we also show it as a diagram. So we have the individual tables, we show the relationships between those tables, in other words, the foreign keys and the keys and so on and so forth. Actually, while I'm here, notice the scroll bar. It's that new hybrid scroll bar I was talking about, where initially the thumb is very thin. We have a horizontal one, we have a vertical one. And when I hover over that thumb, it converts into the standard looking scroll bar. So I can scroll, move away, it just shows the thumb. If I leave it alone for a while, it just disappears. So if I move the mouse again, they appear again. So we're basically being very, if you like, modern and UWP about the scroll bars. Anyway, the diagram, as I said, shows you the relationships between the tables via the keys and foreign keys. We have mostly foreign, sorry, what am I talking about? We have mostly one-to-many relationships here between these tables. Essentially, they're all about collections of various data items. We have photos somewhere. Where are the photos? Photos are over here. We have, albums. We have filters, and so on and so forth. Now I can rearrange the elements of the diagrams, and everything moves along with it. It's kind of a cool little feature. This diagram control, essentially. And in doing so, I can click on items. So here I'm clicking on this particular table, and notice the object inspector over here shows information that the model editor has gleaned from the database schema about that particular entity. So here we are. This is a table. I can click on a key. So it's an integer key, and it's a primary key. Look, whoa, yes, it's nullable, and so on and so forth. I can even click on the connectors. So here it's an association, if you like. It's a one-to-many association, a relationship between, photo viewer entity and filters through the filters connection. So all in all, a nice little model designer, if you like. And now, having basically opened up that database, interrogated it, found out the schema, displayed the schema, we can now generate the ORM code for this database. So I go up here and I say generate code files. The first thing it wants to do is well, actually, before I do that, the one thing I want to do, I'm going to change the name of this data model to say photo viewer. Might as well make everything. So it changes this model, if you like, to be the photo viewer model. And now let me create the code files. And the first thing it wants to do is to save the actual internal representation of that database schema, the data model, if you like. So I'm going to call it photo viewer again. And we're going to save that. And then it says the code file generation was successfully completed. What I'm going to do is just bring over a file explorer. So this is the files that were just generated. If you notice, it's still the same folder structure, and yes, it happened at 11:20 my time. So let me just go back up here, go here, and I'm just going to open it up in Visual Studio Code because I don't have Rad Studio on this particular webinar PC. So let's have a look at the entities.paz file. So it's the photo viewer entities. Oh, by the way, ignore the errors. It's just because I don't have any of the surrounding libraries or units installed. So this particular plugin basically says, I don't understand what this is. So we can see some DXEMF units. And here we have the various classes within that. In other words, one class for each of those tables. And we've generated the code. We have some various procedures. We have some properties here. We've set the right attributes that our code requires, and so on, and so on, and so on. So that's the entities. And we have some link code as well. So let's open that, and we have various different types of collection where we're creating them as interfaces. We declare proper GUIDs for all that. and so on and so on. And down at the bottom, I believe there's, oh yes, registration of these things for the various factories that we, or the factory that we have for link expressions for our EMF product. So the code is generated for us, and all we need to do in our own code when we're accessing this particular database is to use these two units to access all of the data. We don't care about writing SQL. It's all done for us. It's all set up. Now, there's a lot more to this entity model framework that I could show here. A couple of extra features, a few extra features just quickly. You can data access using FireDAC, fine. DBGO ADO connection components, fine. There's a dataset component. You can bind entity objects to data-aware controls because that's what we have, data-aware controls. You can build object queries easily to retrieve, sort, filter data using link expressions, etc. There's a parser supporting a database independent criteria string syntax, support for ordinal, real, enumerated, nullable types, string fields, and all so on and so forth. And you can see that here. There's singles. There's trying to find a string here, and I can't find a string. Never mind. Custom object identifiers to mark a field property of any supported data type as a key, and so on and so on and so on. More information in the what's new about this, and we're in the process of designing and writing and recording tutorials for this new ORM tool. And as I just said, you can see more information in the what's new and the documentation. Chatting with the team to maybe do a webinar in the future about exploring this framework and the designer in kind of more detail than I can possibly do on what's new type webinar as we have here. So, excuse me, the Express Entity Model Framework and Designer. Let me kill that, and we're done with that now. Next up, I want to just quickly bring this over, is the PDF viewer. Now, of course, it shows up on another screen. Excuse the flicker. First of all, we have support for bookmarks. So if I click open the bookmarks panel here, so we have bookmarks, standard looking bookmarks, where I click on the bookmark, takes me to the relevant place in the document. This last item is a hyperlink, and clicking on that, I get a security warning because of the way I set up this machine, but I could actually go to that particular ASPX file if I want to. So hyperlinks are there. The other thing I want to show you is page thumbnails. So this particular document has 4 pages, I think, yes. And I can jump to each page by basically clicking on the page thumbnail. So it's that simple. The ribbon, let me find the ribbon. There we are. The ribbon control gains a new search toolbar. Now, what this does is it gives you the ability, or gives your user the ability, excludes the flicker. I'll explain why that I have a flicker at the moment, in a moment, I should say. Gives your user the ability to search for an option, or I should really say a command in the ribbon without, actually trying to spot it through searching through all the toolbar. The toolbar, the search box itself follows the tabs in the ribbon. So these are the tabs in the ribbon, and it follows along those tabs inside that tab area. It's not actually part of the ribbon. It's just where it appears. Now, this editor basically allows you to make, if you're familiar with Microsoft Office apps, they have a new Tell Me option, Tell Me search box, and it's basically the same as that. To be honest, it's going to be easier shown than explained. I want to do a select all. I can't remember where select all is. I can't remember that it's, well, I can't remember what it is. So I start typing up here S for select all. And immediately I get given a drop down of commands beginning with S or having an S in it. I could select the option straight away, look, select all, or I could continue typing SE. Oops. And there's only one option now, and I can just basically click on that option. And not only have I found the command, but also applied the command to the document or to whatever the ribbon is actually displaying or being used for. Notice, by the way, by doing that, there is a new tab for selection, and notice that the search box has moved along. So in other words, the search box appears after all the tabs. So no need for your user to try and remember where the heck that command was in the middle of your huge ribbon. They can just type the command and find it that way. So that's the new search toolbar for the ribbon. Okay, let's have a little, no, I don't want to save. Let's have a little bit of fun now. And I'm going to show you the scheduler control and how it can create, modify, delete, whatever appointments that appear in your Microsoft Office calendar or Google Calendar. And for this demo, I'm going to be using my personal Google Calendar. When I start the demo, the first thing that pops up is a dialog which tries to explain what's going on. Essentially, in order to access these calendars, they're in the cloud, you have to provide some kind of authentication. And in essence, accessing such a calendar data requires you obtain OAuth 2.0 credentials for your application, and you specify them by the new authorization components that we've also introduced in this release, so you don't have to worry about that either. So we have the super secret client ID and client secret here, or asterisk out. I'm going to start the demo. Now, I've already provided my credentials to the demo app. Let me bring the demo app over. Where are you? Come here. Here's the demo app. I've already provided my credentials to the demo app. I warn you now, we specify that you can use the demo with your own calendars and all the rest of it. We tell you where we store the credentials so you can delete them. It's just in an ini file. We do not recommend you do that in your own applications because security being security and all the rest of it. Anyway, so here I am, jmbucknall@gmail.com. This is the demo stuff. Let me show the week and be easier. So this is the kind of demo appointments that we've provided for the scheduler. I'm going to add myself. So here we are. Here we have my calendar. Yes, this is what's going to happen to me over the next few days. Oh, I have a VCL 18.1 webinar, which is going on right now. I'm getting my furnace and AC service tomorrow. Sprinkler guy is also coming around because I've got a leak. So what I'm going to do here is add a new appointment for Thursday. So my landscaper is coming over. My landscaper, okay, I found him in the yellow pages. He's coming over to discuss the cost of building a new wall flower bed out the front of our house. So landscaper, location, home, and he's going to arrive, I think it can be 10 o'clock, whoops, 10 o'clock, and he's going to be around for about hour and a half or something like that, and discuss the walled, whoops, can't type, flower bed, boom, okay, add it. Now I can hear you say, yeah, this is just faking the Google Calendar. Not so quickly. let me bring over my Google Calendar. Calendar.google.com. This is my calendar on Google. And there is that exact, let me just drag this up here. That's the same thing I just added inside the demo app. So just to show you, let me move this up a bit. So it's now from 9 to 10:30. And what I have to do here is to say, okay, let's reload. And look, 8 to 9:30. Okay, we have a slight time difference. Google knows I'm on Colorado or Mountain Time. Unfortunately, our demo app thinks I'm on Pacific Time, but you get the point. Let's delete it. Whoops. Delete it, and it's gone from Google Calendar. So this works exactly the same way for Microsoft Office Calendar. It's a way for you to add a scheduler control to your application and store the appointments in the cloud, either Google or Microsoft. And I think this is wonderful, I must admit. It's great fun. And lo and behold, it just works. The other thing I want to show you is the agenda view. So here's the agenda view. I'm actually showing everything here. So let me just turn my stuff off. And what I can do now is do some fun things like, let's move, I don't know, this one to the previous day. So we have now drag and drop within the agenda view as well as everywhere else. So that's another new feature for the scheduler control. So scheduler control, support for your appointments in the cloud, your calendars in the cloud, as well as drag and drop within the agenda view. So let's kill that. Let's kill that as well. Next up, let's take a quick look at a couple of new features for the tree view or tree list. These features basically have been migrated over from our, we're nearly there, I can tell you why this is all going wrong, from our grid. So here we have, the first thing is the ability to search for text within any column in the tree list. And this is done through this new find panel that looks like a search box essentially. So let me show you how this works from the beginning. So the nice thing about this particular feature is the data in a tree list forms, well, a tree. There are branches, and those branches have other branches, and you can open them all up and then close them and so on and so forth. The nice thing about this particular feature is if the search text is found in a sub-branch of the tree, the entire branch up to the top of the hierarchy will be shown. So let's show this. I'm going to search for Colorado. So I start off with C. And we get a whole bunch of hits for C. O, fewer. We have Covina. I'm not even sure where that is in California. And we have control or whatever. So I type in an L now. And now suddenly there's nothing highlighted. But again, remember, what I've done is to search through all the columns, and it's actually displayed as a tree list. So let's open up some of these branches. And there we go. And there we go. And down, there we go. So this shows basically that all of those records that I searched through Colorado for, and those ones that which mapped or were successful, are actually at the bottom of each of those branches of the tree. And yet we're showing everything for that particular branch of the tree all the way up to the top of the hierarchy. Next up is the filter control for the tree list. This one is about providing a simple way for your users to filter our records according to a filter string, so that something that they can construct visually. Now, at the moment, this demo shows all of those branches that have records where the job title, or at least something in a branch, has the word manager. Let me just open up the job title a bit so you can see manager, manager, manager. So we're seeing those records, they're filtered in. Let's now refine that by looking for those records that also have a last name that begins with H. I'll create a new condition. It's going to be the last name, and it's going to begin with, an H. And I'm going to apply that, and bingo. Here we are. We've opened up all the items in the tree, the branches in the tree. So what we have here is this manager has a last name begins with H. This manager has a last name begins with H. So on and so on, so on. Notice how easy that was? I didn't have to remember what the field name was called. There's a drop down. Brilliant. I can't remember what the conditions are. Oh, there's a drop down. Brilliant. And so on and so on. Let's do something even more refined than that. I'm going to look for those records that show managers, we've got that already, that either have a last name that begins with H, which I have, or a first name that begins with A. So let me first of all remove that row, and I'm going to add here a new group. Okay, so this group is going to be an OR type group. And what did I say? Last name begins with H. And I can either press the button there, or I can, click on here and add a condition. But I'm basically going to go say first name begins with an A. So, whoops, an A. So what we're doing here in the filter, got to be a manager, and the last name has to begin with H, or the first name begins with an A. Let's apply that. Boom. So all the managers, this particular manager here, last name begins with H. This particular manager here, first name begins with A. This one has both, but that's what OR really means. So filter control for the tree list works in the way you'd expect it to work. The tree information is still maintained, the branches are still maintained, and all that. Next up, because we were just talking about the find panel in the tree list, let's do a quick look at the same find panel within the property grid. So here we are. Let me just clear this. I'm going to search for all records, or find all records which have the word AVE, or at least the beginning of the word AVE in it, for avenue. So we have lots of those. And here we are. We're in a property grid, if you like. So if you like, the columns are now rows, and the rows are now columns, if you see what I mean. The nice thing about it is you can actually add in another search item. So I'm going to search for wash for Washington as well. So here we have, I'm doing a find, if you like, for records which have this in them as well as that in them. Notice I have to have a gap there, otherwise I'm just basically searching for that expression or that bit of text inside the records. But by adding a space there, we're basically saying, okay, these are two expressions and they have to be added together. So there we go, the find panel. That works exactly the same way in the tree list. And finally, my most favorite thing of all. I mean, I kind of find the Google stuff or the Office stuff in the scheduler fun, and the well, I don't write that many database programs anymore, but the entity model designer plus the EMF tool is great as well. But here I want to talk about, I've harped on about this with our WinForms components as well as our VCL components. So let me talk about this. So this is our mail client. Oh, notice the search bar there. We have a set of color schemes or skins or themes, or whatever you like to call them. At the moment, we're using Office 2016, quote, colorful. Notice the new vector skin, the Bezier, which is our SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics skin. And I'm going to click on that, let it redraw. Now, Bezier, by the way, was an engineer in the 60s at Citroën in France who devised a simple way of defining and rendering curved lines. It's really hard in a webinar like this to actually show you hi-DPI and all that kind of stuff, but here's a relatively compelling experiment. I'm going to drag this. Now I've got the Bezier curve, or the Bezier skin, I should say. I'm going to drag it over to my high-res screen. This is on the left side of the screen you're looking at. Now, this is running at almost 4K. It's 3200 by 1800. I'm going to drag it over there, give it a couple seconds to re-render the window. So here we are. It's re-rendering over there. And what I'm now going to do is I'll slowly drag it back over to the screen you're looking at. Notice the difference in resolution between where the majority of that window is versus the resolution of the window you're looking at, which due to GoToWebinar is running at 1920 by 1080. So roughly twice the resolution on the screen on the left. And that's how lovely and clear it looks on my other screen. Of course, when I get so far, it jumps back to boom and re-renders at this lower resolution. The nice thing about the Bezier SVG skin is you can easily change the color palette. Notice we have all these skins over here, and it takes us a while to actually, create these different varieties of skins or themes. With the Bezier, it's really simple. In fact, we have so many color palettes for the Bezier screen. Let's do Fireball. So this is our Fireball palette for the Bezier skin. The nice thing about this is not only is there's a lot of choices you can do. What the heck is Tokyo? Can't say I've ever looked at Tokyo. Wow, that's bright. Volcano? Not only is it easy, it was easy for us to do this palette, to create this palette. The hardest bit was actually creating the names, if you like. But you can do the same. You can create a palette, which is basically a single color or 3-4 colors or whatever it happens to be, to suit your business look and feel. It's that simple, really is. Our skin editor has been upgraded to do this, and it's just very easy to do. It's something that all of a sudden, this new Bezier skin gives you the ability to create applications that look and feel like they come from your business. That corporate style, if you like. Anyway, that's all I want to do. There's a couple of more things which I haven't been able to show you, but that's 18.1 in action. And so I'd just like to say thank you for being here, for attending. There's me. There's my email address at devexpress.com. I'm also on Twitter at JMBucknall. DevExpress is on Facebook, where we basically reiterate what we post elsewhere. It's also on Twitter, where we do the same, essentially. Our support is down there at the bottom. So that's essentially it for me. Amanda, how's it been going on the old question front?
We've had quite a few come in. We've answered some of them. We did have someone asked to reiterate what was happening with support for Firemonkey. I don't know if you want to address that again.
Yeah, let me just quickly go back to that particular section. So basically in 18.1, there is no Firemonkey release. There's no new controls for Firemonkey. However, that doesn't mean we're not working on it. So we did do basically a survey about what VCL customers wanted to see in the product. A lot of people voted for Firemonkey support. Yep, I agree. It's a big thing to do. VCL is not Firemonkey. Firemonkey is not VCL. With Firemonkey, you're trying not to actually access the hardware platform, the operating system, because it's different. We are doing some work on such a feature set. We're doing 3 controls on development at the moment. There's a layout control, there's an in-memory data set, and there is a grid. They're not ready. We're doing both desktop and mobile, so it's going to be hair-raising. Not ready for any CTP or beta or anything like that for 18.1. Stay tuned. We may be emailing customers saying, hey, do you want to have a quick preview of our new Firemonkey stuff? That may happen before the next major release, 18.2, which is November, December. So stay tuned. We are working on it. There's just nothing for 18.1.
Let's see, from Tom. He says, is there any informally recognized correspondence between specific VCL styles that Embarcadero added in recent years and specific DevExpress skins?
No, there is not.
Okay.
Because essentially, our controls have more, how can I put it, user interface features than the ones which are provided as part of the themes with Rad Studio. That's basically about it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm answering a question.
Oh, sure.
The team's answering.
I haven't got that window open, so I can't see.
Okay. Mark's asking, and maybe this is something we could do, is there a tutorial or could we make a tutorial to add a new theme yourself?
That's a good idea. With regard to Bezier or with regard to the old theme styles? The old theme styles, I'd have to say, yeah, probably not. The Bezier stuff, yeah, I don't mind thinking about that and seeing what we can come up with. Have some fun.
Sounds like a blast. From Win, he's asking about which rave.
Do I?
Just says which rave ? I'm assuming it's a.
I don't know it, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I haven't heard of it. If you can explain what it is.
It was a style. That was a style.
Which rave? Don't know it. Sorry. I'll have to have a chat with the team.
Okay. I just sounded interesting. Otherwise, let's see. It's a palette for Bezier.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Do you want to have a look at it? Is that what should? It's kind of fun. I think I closed the. Let me open up Demo Center again. Let me have a look. Demo Center, VCL. Let me open up the mail client again. Hang on a minute. Sorry, guys. I closed the apps. Okay, there's the mail client. Let it re-render. And what I'm going to do is change the color scheme to Bezier. There it goes. Color palette. Which rave? I don't know. Wow. Okay. There we go. Which rave? Kind of a dark theme with green.
Oh.
Just fun. To play around with these things, I must admit. Art house.
And let's see.
The whole webinar becomes, let's see all the palettes, please.
Yeah. Let's see. From Nick, maybe some code examples of using entity mapping in code.
That's something that I was saying earlier on, is maybe it'd be a good idea for us to do a webinar on, the whole entity framework, how it's used, and how you can use it in your application. So maybe I'll have a chat with the team and see whether we can come up with some quote simple application which has a database, and then create that application so you can see what kind of code needs to be written and what kind of things we can do with the entity model framework. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
My favorite phrase of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's everything.
Okay.
Let's see. From Vladimir, is it possible to change or create a palette from code?
I would imagine so. All that's happening when I choose a different palette is some code gets run that actually changes the palette, and presumably you're passing some kind of parameters along. But I don't know what that code looks like. I'd have to check with the team. So for sure, why not?
Okay. All right, that's everything. Thanks, Julian.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amanda. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. And see you next time.
All right, everybody. Like I mentioned before, today's webinar will be made available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. You will also get a follow-up email with a link to this webinar recording sometime next week. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.